There is a widespread misconception in modern culture that if a person is not highly visible, they must be harboring deep insecurities. When someone chooses not to post their face, daily lifestyle, personal milestones, or appearance online, society quickly assumes that something essential is missing from their life. However, that shallow assumption actually reveals far more about our collective obsession with public exposure than it does about the individual being judged. For many empaths, the complete absence of self-display is never a symptom of low self-confidence. In fact, it is often the exact opposite. It is the direct result of a human mind that has completely evolved beyond the constant need for external reinforcement. This is precisely where human psychology becomes truly fascinating. Most people have been conditioned from a very early age to confuse public attention with intrinsic personal worth. Somewhere along the road of modern digital development, sheer visibility became tightly fused with individual identity. The more people see you on digital platforms, the more significant you appear to the general public. The more approval you receive from complete strangers, the more secure you are presumed to be inside your own skin. Social media platforms heavily amplify this distorted belief system by turning human validation into a measurable addictive reward mechanism. Digital likes become instant social proof, comments turn into temporary emotional boosts, and view counts transform into a heavily warped form of social status. Empaths experience this entire psychological dynamic in a completely different way because they are unusually attuned to the subtle emotional undercurrents running through human interactions. They do not just see the simple surface exchange of someone posting a photograph and others responding with standard compliments. They perceive the invisible transaction happening right beneath the surface, the underlying hunger for constant affirmation, the exhausting performance hidden inside everyday self-presentation, and the unconscious bargaining that silently begs others to acknowledge their significance. For a self-aware empath, participating in that endless cycle feels utterly draining. This exhaustion does not stem from believing that posting online is inherently wrong, but rather from a firm refusal to attach their core identity to fleeting public reactions. This distinction is vital. An empath who chooses not to post personal photos online is not rejecting human connection. They are simply rejecting emotional dependency. There is a massive difference between wanting to share a moment and needing constant validation to feel complete. Many empaths have spent years being overly sensitive to the emotions of those around them, leading them to finally cherish something exceptionally rare, an identity that remains completely untouched by outside opinions. Stick with me, because understanding this single shift will change how you view online privacy forever. Think about how unusual that grounded mindset is in a culture almost entirely built around continuous public performance. Most people are carefully taught how to build and maintain a marketable online image. Empaths, on the other hand, feel a strong internal drive to protect a genuine reality because they understand a critical truth that others often overlook. The more your identity becomes fused with public approval, the easier it becomes to lose yourself entirely. Once your self-worth depends on the reactions of others, you enter a dangerous state of emotional outsourcing. Your daily confidence rises and falls based on who happens to notice you. Your inner peace becomes negotiable, and your self-image becomes partly owned by total strangers. Mature empaths sense the danger lurking inside that dynamic and choose to remain deeply rooted in themselves rather than admired by the masses. They prefer genuine authenticity over superficial metrics, and they would rather remain completely unknown than fundamentally misunderstood. Empaths value inner essence far more than outward appearance, substance over empty display, and true meaning over a loud spectacle. When you value internal coherence, public self-promotion starts to feel strangely irrelevant to your daily existence. After all, if you truly know who you are at your core, what are you actually trying to prove to the world? That specific question deeply unsettles people because so much of modern human behavior is structured around proving things, proving your attractiveness, proving your success, proving your happiness, and proving your relevance. Empaths step away from these exhausting systems not out of superiority, but out of a profound sense of personal liberation. They stop performing their identity for an audience and simply start inhabiting it fully. You will naturally notice that emotionally intelligent people become increasingly private as they grow older and wiser. That deliberate choice is never a passive withdrawal. It is a graceful refinement of their lives. They realize with crystal clarity that not every truth about their life needs to be broadcast to the world. They understand that special moments do not need external witnesses to be valuable, and that personal value does not increase when exposed to public scrutiny. Some essential things deepen only in privacy. Peace, self-trust, and mental clarity flourish away from the spotlight. Empaths understand this intuitively. Pay close attention to the next part, because it uncovers the hidden psychological mechanism behind this protective boundary. They recognize how destructive constant comparison is to the human psyche, and they witness what happens when identity turns into a relentless competition of curating fake lives instead of living real ones. In response to this endless digital comparison, many empaths quietly opt out of the game entirely. That deliberate choice is true psychological independence in action. It is the firm refusal to let digital algorithms dictate self-worth or turn identity into a commercial product. In a world obsessed with being seen, there is extraordinary power in becoming entirely self-defined. Silence is often mistakenly labeled as insecurity, privacy is misread as weakness, and restraint is confused with a lack of presence. Yet some of the most secure people have zero interest in public visibility because they are no longer hungry for superficial attention. They find deep nourishment in personal purpose, quiet inner peace, meaningful relationships, and unwavering self-respect. True inner stability is the remarkable ability to exist comfortably without announcing yourself to the crowd, knowing your worth without displaying it, and remaining whole without needing applause. Choosing privacy is a silent declaration that human identity is not a performance and that your presence is never diminished by remaining private. This reality unsettles others because when a person no longer needs external validation, they become impossible to manipulate through cheap praise or subtle disapproval. They cannot be drawn into petty social comparisons or seduced by empty recognition. This psychological sovereignty is rare, but it is deeply real. Many empaths live this reality every day, not out of fear, but because they have stopped confusing public visibility with genuine human value. Once you realize they do not avoid visibility out of low confidence, an even deeper question emerges: why do they actively protect their privacy? Privacy for an empath is rarely about hiding in shame. It is about necessary self-protection. Highly sensitive people experience vulnerability quite differently than the average person. What feels like casual sharing to one person can feel deeply invasive to an empath. What seems like innocent posting can feel like opening a heavy door that becomes very difficult to close later. Empaths think in terms of emotional resonance and psychological weight. They know that the moment you reveal a piece of yourself to the public, you invite endless interpretation, which is never truly neutral. Online posts instantly enter the complex realm of other people's projections, judgments, envy, and hidden resentments. Empaths feel this reality immediately, knowing that not everyone looking at them does so with pure intentions. Some observe with bitter comparison, unspoken hostility, or a search for easy vulnerabilities to exploit. Empaths who have experienced emotional manipulation or betrayal in the past become hyper-aware of these dynamics. They treat privacy as a sacred, non-negotiable boundary. Psychological research consistently shows that firm boundaries are the clearest sign of genuine emotional health. People often misread healthy guardedness as social withdrawal or irrational fear, but they are actually witnessing true discernment in action. Discernment is the ability to distinguish what genuinely deserves access to your life from what does not. Many empaths develop this wisdom through painful experiences in their early years, where they overexposed themselves emotionally, gave away too much energy, and trusted too quickly. After encountering gossip, unfair projection, and calculated manipulation, a profound internal shift occurs. The empath stops viewing total openness as an automatic virtue and begins viewing healthy selectivity as an absolute necessity. Mature sensitivity knows how to protect itself effectively through intentional privacy. What I am about to tell you next explains why this boundary is vital for long-term well-being. Keeping life moments off public platforms is not an irrational fear of being seen, but a conscious decision about who earns the privilege of seeing you. There is immense power in that approach. We live in an era where oversharing is falsely framed as authenticity, but authenticity without healthy boundaries is merely vulnerability without discernment. Mature empaths understand this crucial difference. They recognize that not every casual observer deserves a pass into their inner world. When privacy transforms into self-respect, the surrounding silence stops feeling hollow and starts feeling sovereign. Empaths are also acutely aware of lingering psychological residue, the deep exhaustion that follows unnecessary social exposure, and the heaviness of feeling constantly watched or interpreted. Sensitive individuals process social stimuli much more deeply than average, experiencing judgment and relational tension far more intensely. What outsiders view as an overprotective stance is actually a rational, healthy biological response to heightened internal processing. Empaths actively prevent psychological drainage before it happens, which is intelligence in action. Strong individuals understand the power of prevention. They structure their lives to reduce unnecessary harm right from the start. They do not confuse accessibility with kindness, knowing that unrestricted access always invites chaos into sensitive spaces. Maintaining distance is not coldness, it is profound discipline designed to keep the self intact. Fiercely protecting your inner peace is never selfish. Limiting unnecessary exposure is not paranoia, and keeping intimate parts of life sacred is not antisocial behavior. It is the highest form of self-governance. A person who calmly decides what to reveal, what to withhold, and who receives access to their world is deeply conscious. True consciousness always looks strange to those operating unconsciously. That is why empaths are so frequently misunderstood. Their restraint is called insecurity. Their privacy is mistaken for secretiveness, and their boundaries are mislabeled as hostile walls. Walls isolate you from life, whereas healthy boundaries preserve your soul. Every empath eventually faces a crucial decision. Will they remain endlessly accessible to prove they are open, or will they fiercely protect what is valuable because they know it matters? That choice represents the difference between emotional depletion and true sovereignty. What you choose to protect reveals what you truly value. When an empath protects their peace and private life, it is because they have finally recognized their inherent worth. Protecting your privacy is the intelligent defense of something deeply sacred, signaling that you no longer require the world to confirm your value. This brings us to the most fundamental pattern of all. For many empaths, deciding not to post their lives online stems from a simple preference. They are far more interested in genuinely living life than performing it for an audience. Contemporary culture has trained the masses to confuse documentation with participation, creating the false belief that unshared moments matter less or remain incomplete. Empaths resist this logic because they relate to life through pure presence rather than empty performance. Performance asks how something will appear to others, while presence asks how deeply you are experiencing the moment right now. Performance turns your attention outward toward a crowd, whereas presence turns awareness inward toward your own soul. The moment you curate an experience for external observation, your attention splits, and part of your mind steps outside the moment to manage public perception. Empaths feel that internal fracture and actively resist it. Here is the final key takeaway to remember from all of this. Living fully requires protecting your direct contact with reality before it ever gets converted into a shallow digital image. Empaths choose real depth, quiet intimacy, and undivided attention over empty public applause every single time.